Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. He leaned in and whispered, "Try not to embarrass me tonight. These people are way above your level." I did not say a word. I just walked in beside him. When the host rushed over, shook my hand, and said, "We have all been waiting to meet you." His face went pale so fast it was almost satisfying. For 3 weeks, my husband coached me on how not to embarrass him. "Make sure you get your hair done professionally," he said, as if I were incapable of grooming myself. "Buy a new dress, something elegant but not too flashy," he instructed, as if I did not understand formal events. "Just smile and let me handle the conversations," he reminded me the night before, as if I were too unsophisticated to speak to successful people. I listened to every condescending comment, nodded through every patronizing suggestion, and let him believe I needed his guidance to navigate a world that was way above my level. The whole time, I was working on the building where this exclusive dinner would be held, the historic estate I had been restoring for over a year, the project that would win me a regional preservation award. The whole time, the host of this dinner, the real estate investment titan my husband, Derek, was desperate to impress, was calling me for project updates and texting me photos of antique fixtures he had found. Derek never asked about my work, never bothered to learn what I actually did, never connected the dots. So when we walked into that estate and everything he thought he knew about his wife collapsed in seconds, I cannot say I felt bad about it. My name is Naomi. I am a Black woman, 34 years old, and I have spent the last 15 years becoming someone my own Black husband never bothered to know. I am a historic preservation architect. That is not the same as a regular architect, though most people do not understand the difference. I do not design new office towers or suburban developments. I save structures that everyone else has written off as lost causes. Century-old factories that become lofts, abandoned theaters turned into cultural centers, landmark properties with failing foundations and restrictions so strict that most architects refuse to touch them. That is my specialty. Impossible projects that require engineering expertise, historical knowledge, and stubborn determination that does not quit when things get complicated. Last year, my firm brought in $3.2 million in revenue. We have been featured in national architecture magazines. I have a regional preservation award on my office shelf and a national recognition from a historic preservation foundation. 3 years ago, I gave a keynote speech at a conference in Boston where 200 architects took notes while I explained adaptive reuse strategies for industrial buildings. But you would never know any of that by looking at me on a Tuesday morning. I show up to construction sites in steel-toed boots and work pants. My hair is usually pulled back into whatever bun I can manage before my first cup of coffee. I drive a sensible Honda CR-V with mud on the floor mats and rolled-up blueprints in the back. I do not wear designer clothes on job sites because designer clothes do not survive concrete dust and paint splatter. To most people, and definitely to my husband, I look like someone still working her way up, not someone who has already arrived. Derek and I met 3 years ago at a friend's wedding in Atlanta. He was a financial analyst at a mid-tier investment firm. Good salary, respectable position, clear ambition about making partner within 5 years. When we first talked at the reception, I found him attractive in that polished way some men have. Everything about him was carefully put together. Tailored suit, expensive watch, the kind of easy confidence that comes from a life where doors have always opened. He asked about my work, and I told him about a theater restoration I was finishing. He seemed interested, asked follow-up questions, laughed at my stories. We started dating. Within 6 months, he moved into my house, the craftsman-style home I had bought as a foreclosure 5 years earlier, and spent 2 years renovating myself. Original hardwood floors I had refinished by hand, built-in cabinetry I had stripped and restored, plaster I had repaired instead of replacing. Derek loved that house. He loved telling people about the great deal we got, though he never mentioned I had bought it before I met him or that I had done most of the renovation work myself. At first, our relationship felt balanced. We were both Black professionals with demanding careers. We would meet for dinner and talk about our days. Or rather, he would talk about his days, clients he was pursuing, financial models he was building, office politics he was navigating. I listened, asked questions, offered support. Looking back now, I realize how rarely the conversation went the other way. When I talked about my projects, his attention would drift. He would nod at the right moments, but his eyes would glaze slightly. If I got excited about solving a structural problem or tracking down period-appropriate materials, he would smile indulgently, the way you might smile at a child showing you a drawing. He complimented my appearance often, told me I was beautiful, especially when I dressed up for his company events. But along with the compliments came suggestions. Small things at first. Maybe wear heels instead of flats next time. Have you thought about a different hairstyle? That dress is nice, but something with a recognizable label might make a better impression. I told myself he was just trying to help, that he understood corporate image better than I did, that marriage meant compromise. The comments escalated gradually enough that I did not see the pattern forming. "You work too much," he would say when I brought drawings home on weekends. "Can't your team handle some of this? Do you really need to be at every site visit? Or maybe it is time to upgrade your wardrobe. You cannot show up to important events looking like you just left a construction site." One evening after a 14-hour day dealing with a failing subcontractor, he said, "I know your buildings matter to you, but eventually you have to think about our future. Not just your projects, our future." As if my career was not part of that future. As if the company I had built from nothing was a hobby next to his real work. I started noticing other things. How he would introduce me at his company events. "This is my wife, Naomi. She is an architect." Then he would immediately pivot the conversation back to his deals. How he never came to my job sites, never attended my industry events, never asked to see the buildings I had saved. 6 weeks before the dinner, everything began with a single envelope. Derek came home practically vibrating with excitement, holding a cream-colored invitation with embossed lettering. "This is huge," he said. "Reginald Whitfield is hosting a private dinner at the Whitfield estate. Black tie. Only 12 people and their spouses invited." He explained that Reginald controlled half the commercial real estate development in our city, and that this dinner could change the trajectory of his career. I kept chopping vegetables for dinner and let him have his moment. "I was thinking you could come with. Me as my date," he said finally. "Not I would love you there, but you could come, as if I might not qualify." "Of course," I said. "When is it?" 3 weeks from Saturday. He had plenty of time to prepare, and apparently to prepare me. The coaching began the next morning. "Make sure you schedule a hair appointment for that Friday," he said over breakfast. "Professional styling. None of that messy bun you do for job sites." "My hair is fine, Derek," I said. "For work sites, sure. But this is different. These are extremely successful people. First impressions matter. A few days later, you should buy a new dress. Something elegant, not too flashy. Maybe with a designer label. It will help you feel confident." The night before the dinner, he sat me down for what he called a game plan discussion. "Listen, Naomi, I need you to understand how significant this is. The people at this dinner are way out of our league right now. Tomorrow, just follow my lead, okay? Smile, be pleasant, and let me handle the conversations. These people can be judgmental about careers and backgrounds. I do not want you to feel uncomfortable." I nodded and said, "All right," letting him believe I needed his protection from his own assumptions. The whole time, I was working on the Whitfield estate itself. 14 months earlier, Reginald had hired my firm to transform his family's 1890s Georgian mansion into a luxury event venue while maintaining its historic designation. It was one of the most complex projects of my career, navigating preservation codes, upgrading electrical and climate systems without damaging original plaster, designing modern amenities that blended with historic fabric. Reginald and I met weekly in his study, walked the site together, and solved problems late at night over the phone. He respected my expertise, valued my input, and trusted me with his family's legacy property. He had my cell number saved. That very week, he had texted me a photo of antique bronze door handles he found, asking if they would work for the carriage house. I had mentioned the Whitfield project to Derek twice. Once when I got the contract. Once when I explained I would be working late for several weeks. Both times, he had nodded without asking a single question. He never connected estate restoration with Whitfield estate dinner. Why would he? In his mind, my work existed in a separate, lesser category from his world of finance and important connections. I let him coach me. Let him think he was preparing me for an environment beyond my grasp. I went to the salon. I bought the dress. I let him choose a bracelet that fit the event. I smiled when he approved of my appearance the night of the dinner because I knew something he did not. In a few hours, his entire understanding of me would collapse. Saturday evening arrived clear and mild, The kind of night that makes a city look cinematic. Derek got ready as if he were about to argue a case before the Supreme Court. New suit, polished shoes, practiced smile. I dressed quietly, pulled on the black dress, the bracelet, the heels he wanted. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone who belonged wherever she chose to stand. We drove to the estate in tense silence broken by Derek's reminders. "You look beautiful," he said as we neared the gates. "Remember, smile, be warm, let me lead. These people are extremely influential. We only get one shot at this." We pulled up to the entrance, and the building rose before us in all its restored glory. The exterior lighting I had specified washed over the limestone facade. The original bronze doors gleamed. The garden path was lined with lanterns I had chosen from a preservation catalog. Every detail carried my fingerprints. Derek did not notice any of it. He was too busy rehearsing names and opening lines. He parked and turned to me with that serious, paternal expression that had become familiar over the last 3 weeks. He took my hand and said quietly, "Please, just try not to embarrass me. These people are way above your level. Way above mine too, honestly. But I am trying to get us there. So please follow my lead." I looked at my husband and saw a man who had built an entire strategy on a false assumption. That he was the only one in our marriage who understood power. "All right," I said. We stepped out of the car and walked inside together. The foyer took my breath away, even though I had designed it that way. The restored crown molding glowed under the chandelier I had tracked down and had rewired. The marble floors we had uncovered and polished reflected the light. Guests clustered near the staircase, talking quietly, holding glasses of wine. Derek's shoulders squared as he scanned the room, ready to introduce himself to Reginald. He had practiced his greeting in the mirror for weeks. But Reginald saw me first. He was talking to an older couple when his gaze swept the foyer. His face lit up when he saw me. He excused himself and walked straight toward us. I watched Derek shift, angling his body slightly forward to intercept, hand already half extended. Reginald did not even glance at him. He came directly to me with both hands open. "Naomi," he said warmly, loud enough for nearby conversations to pause, finally. "I have been telling everyone you would be here tonight. We have all been waiting to meet you." The color drained from Derek's face. His polished greeting died on his tongue. His extended hand hovered in the air, ignored. "Good to see you, Reginald," I said, returning the familiar grip. "See you. You are practically the reason we are having this dinner here," he said, gesturing around us. "I wanted everyone to experience what you have created." Only then did he turn to Derek. "You must be Derek," he said politely. "Naomi's husband. She has mentioned you." Derek managed a strangled sound that might have been, "Nice to meet you." Reginald continued easily. "Naomi and I have been working together for over a year. 3 other architects told me this project could not be done. She proved them wrong. You must be incredibly proud." Derek stared at me like I was a stranger who had suddenly appeared in his wife's place. I felt his shock like a physical thing between us. Reginald linked his arm through mine. "Let me introduce you to some people who have been very eager to meet you," he said. "Michael Dawson is considering converting an old textile mill. And Rebecca Holmes wants to talk about that theater restoration you did in Louisville. Do you mind if I steal her for a bit?" he asked Derek politely. "Professional talk." Derek shook his head, unable to form a coherent sentence. Reginald led me away. I did not look back. For the next 90 minutes, I did exactly what Derek had told me not to do. I led conversations. I talked with developers about load-bearing walls and tax credits, with foundation directors about balancing original materials with accessibility requirements, with board members about how we had preserved the Whitfield estate's integrity while upgrading its systems. I was in my element, surrounded by people who valued the work I did. I saw Derek on the edges of the room, trying to insert himself into discussions, mentioning his firm, his ambitions, his insights into real estate markets. People were polite, but their real interest was elsewhere. Without me as his access point, he was just another analyst among investors who already had more money than they could sensibly place. At one point, he complained to a server about the timing of the appetizers, voice tight, jaw set. I recognized the tone. It was the same tone he used with receptionists and baristas when something did not meet his expectations. I had told myself it was just him being particular. That night, it looked a lot more like a need to feel superior to someone. Later, in Reginald's study, he handed me an envelope with a performance bonus that nearly made me drop it. "You saved me time and a fortune," he said simply. "Take it. You earned it." Then we spent 20 minutes dissecting audio system plans because he trusted my judgment more than the contractors. When I came back to the ballroom, I spotted Derek near the bar, shoulders tight, face drawn. He watched me move through the room, watched people approach me, watched me be the person everyone had come to meet. For the first time in our marriage, he seemed to realize he had never actually seen me clearly. The drive home was silent and heavy. Derek's hands strangled the steering wheel. His jaw flexed. When we parked in our driveway and the engine stopped ticking, he finally turned to me. "You made me look like a complete fool tonight," he said, voice low and shaking. "How did I do that?" I asked calmly. "You knew," he said. "You knew Reginald. You knew that estate. You knew all those people, and you did not tell me. You have been working with him for more than a year, and you never thought to mention it." "I did mention it," I said. "Twice. You were looking at your phone both times." He flushed. "You said you were working on some estate. You did not say it was that estate. You did not say everyone there knew your name. You let me walk in thinking I was bringing my wife into my world, and instead you were the important one. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" "I did not hide anything," I said quietly. "I told you what I do. You never wanted to hear the details. You were not humiliated because of what I did. You were humiliated because tonight other people saw what you refused to see, that I am not below your level." "I never was." "You should have told me," he insisted. "You should have explained how successful you are. So you could control it, use it, or so I would be allowed to exist in your world without threatening your ego." I asked. He stared at me, opening and closing his mouth, searching for a story where he was the victim and I was at fault. He could not find one. I went upstairs, pulled out an overnight bag, and began to pack. Derek stood in the doorway. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Leaving for a while," I said. "I need space to think. I am tired of being treated like something you have to manage." I called my best friend, Candace. "Can I stay with you for a bit?" I asked. "Always," she said. "Get here safe." At the bottom of the stairs, I turned to Derek. "Let me ask you something," I said. "In 3 years of marriage, have you ever asked to see a building I worked on? Have you ever come to a site visit? Have you ever attended one of my award ceremonies? Or have you only asked about my work when it affected your schedule?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The answer hung in the air between us. "That is what I thought," I said. I took my bag, walked out to my sensible Honda, and drove away from the house I had bought and restored long before I knew him. Candace opened the door before I could knock and pulled me into a hug that felt like the first solid ground I had stood on in years. We sat on her couch with a bottle of wine, and I told her everything, not just the dinner, but the slow erosion that had led there. "He never knew you," she said eventually. "The scary part is he never wanted to." Over the next week, Derek's messages poured in. Apologies, excuses, accusations. "Please. I was just shocked. You made me look small. We can fix this." I did not respond. I needed silence more than I needed his explanations. When I finally called him, it was to say something simple and irrevocable. "I am going to file for divorce," I said. "You do not respect what I do. You never have. And I am done shrinking to make you comfortable." He tried to argue, tried to frame the dinner as one bad night, tried to say he loved me. But love without respect is just possession. I was finished with that. The divorce process was not as simple as I hoped. He tried to claim a share of my firm as a marital asset, arguing that his emotional support had contributed to my success. My attorney, a sharp woman named Felicia Harris, calmly demolished the claim with documentation. My firm predated our relationship. My revenue growth tracked directly with completed projects and public recognition, not his involvement. When he began calling my office and colleagues, digging for client lists and contract values, Felicia collected statements. When a younger project manager he had started dating, Kiera, realized he was using her to access my world and offered a sworn affidavit, it finished his case. The judge dismissed his motion with prejudice and warned his attorney that further attempts would be viewed as harassment. 6 months after I left our house with a single bag, the divorce was finalized. Derek signed the papers without looking at me. We walked out of the courthouse in opposite directions. The story of the husband who did not know his wife was the architect everyone wanted spread quietly through our industry. Some found it funny. Some found it cautionary. I focused on work. The Whitfield estate won the Regional Preservation Award. The textile mill conversion turned into one of my firm's defining projects. The theater restoration led to another commission. I hired new staff, moved into a larger office in a restored 1920s building downtown, and watched my company grow in ways I had always hoped for, but had once felt guilty about. At the awards ceremony where I accepted the preservation honor for the estate, I stood at the podium and said, "This is for everyone who has been told not to embarrass someone else by being fully themselves." I did not mention Derek by name. I did not have to. The only person who looked uncomfortable was the one who recognized himself in my words. It was at a later dinner at the Whitfield estate that I met Adrian, a structural engineer brought in to consult on a waterfront revitalization project. Within minutes, we were deep in conversation about seismic retrofitting for historic warehouses. His questions about my work were specific, technical, and respectful. He listened without performing. Adrian came to site visits because he was curious, not because he wanted to be seen. He sat in the audience when I spoke at a conference and asked follow-up questions afterward, not to impress anyone, but to understand the ideas better. When I talked about long days and difficult clients, he did not tell me to slow down for our future. He asked what I needed. One evening over dinner, he asked, "What do you want in a relationship long term?" I answered honestly, "Someone who does not need me to be smaller to feel big. Someone who is proud of me without feeling diminished by me." He nodded. "That seems like the minimum standard," he said. "Not a luxury." It felt like a door quietly opening. A year after the dinner that changed everything, I saw Derek at a coffee shop. He looked tired, suit a little loose, eyes shadowed. He gave a small nod. I returned it. We exchanged a few neutral words about work. As I turned to leave, he said, "Naomi, I am sorry. For all of it, you deserved better." I believed him. I also knew his regret did not obligate me to anything. "I appreciate you saying that," I said. "I hope you find what you are looking for." Then I walked out into the afternoon light, got into my Honda with blueprints in the back, and headed to a meeting for a new project that made me genuinely excited. My phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "How did the walkthrough go? Dinner later? I want to hear everything." I smiled and typed, "Yes. I will tell you all about it." For the first time in a long time, my life felt fully mine. My work, my choices, my relationships. Derek had once warned me not to embarrass him in front of people way above my level. In the end, the only thing that collapsed was the story he had built about who belonged where. I had not climbed to his level. I had remembered my own. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.